Hi there, welcome to Across the Balkans. I'm Nafisa Latic. Great to have your company. Spring is coming and farmers in the region as well as across Europe say their pockets are empty and they can't make ends meet. The conflict in Ukraine affected the cost of fuel and taxes, and farmers say their business is less and less profitable. In several European cities, thousands of them took to the streets with their tractors, blocking the main roads and highways, demanding that their governments help them. Greek farmers want their authorities to follow through on promises to compensate their losses after the storm and flood in September last year. They're also protesting rising inflation, foreign competition, and high taxes, just as the farmers in Romania. Yasemin Colakoglu has more.
A wave of discontent has swept through Europe's farming communities. It's been once again fueled by soaring production costs, relentless taxes, and the influx of imported goods.
Motorina scumpă. Inputurile astea sunt foarte scumpe, n-am dovedit ani să le plătim. Avem rate.
Fiscalitatea, în primul rând, cea mai mare și copleșitoare pentru noi, ăștia din mijloc, clasa din mijloc. Noi suntem cei mai asupriți și cei mai înlăturați de tot. După aia,
after 3 weeks on the streets, protesters struck a deal with the government. They were promised steps would be taken to increase subsidies for diesel, adjust high insurance rates, and expedite payments. Greek farmers face an additional battle of survival against the backdrop of floods and droughts. They've been waiting for compensation for months.
Θέλουμε να διεκδικήσουμε ένα καλύτερο αύριο με χαμηλότερο κόστος παραγωγής, χαμηλότερη τιμή στο καύσιμο, χαμηλότερη τιμή στο ηλεκτρικό ρεύμα και δίκαιη κατανομή των επιδοτήσεων.
And Brussels became a battleground as tractors filled the square outside the EU Parliament. Bonfires were lit and eggs hurled at the building. Collectively, the farmers from across Europe say they are against fellow land rules and unfair competition, particularly from Ukraine and the South American trade bloc Mercosur, covering Argentina, Brazil, Paraguay, and Uruguay. The European Commission has been negotiating with the bloc for over 20 years, but deals have been delayed, partly because of the French concerns about the effect on its farmers.
Je suis simplement contre le libre-échange quand c'est la loi de la jungle. Parce que si on dit on est pour ouvrir mais on ne respecte pas les mêmes règles, je ne suis pas pour. Et donc, je pense que nous ne pouvons pas demander aux producteurs européens d'accepter à marche forcée de respecter plus de règles et dans le même temps de continuer de négocier des accords de libre-échange comme on le faisait dans les années 90. Ce qui est exactement le modèle du Mercosur.
The European Commission has proposed that the suspension of import duties on Ukrainian exports be extended for another year to June 2025. A proposal to exempt EU farmers for 2024 from a requirement to keep a minimum share of their land fallow is also on the table.
We in this building have the highest respect to everybody who puts forward an argument on policy. But let me also remind you that half of the budget of the EU goes to agriculture and that the European farmers know that they have no better ally in safeguarding their income than the European Commission.
2024 is a year of elections for Europe. With only 4 months left to make a change, there's a huge pressure on the government to diffuse farmers' anger. It remains to be seen whether concrete steps will be taken to ease the burden. This spring might bring more tractors to the streets instead of the fields. Yasemin Colakoglu, Across the Balkans.
I want to focus now particularly on the situation in Romania and in Greece. From Bucharest, we have Liliana Piron. She's the executive director at the League of Agricultural Producers Associations of Romania. And in Athens, Apostolos Pistolas, a voting behavior analyst. Thank you both for being with us. Liliana, let me start with you. What is the biggest issue for Romanian farmers at the moment?
Now, in these days in Bucharest, the main issue it is related to the CAP for the greening part of the CAP. Basically, we have already requested a few times. Only in last year, we sent 4 requests to the Commissioner, to the European Commission related to the CAP conditionalities. Because of the pedological condition in Romania, it is very hard for our farmers to respect the good agricultural practices, the GAEX. So if they don't respect these GAEX, they will not receive the payment for the surfaces. So
but why is it difficult for them to follow these guidelines? Why?
Because if we speak about the last year, when we already had the derogation based on the Ukrainian framework, the situation didn't change, but it became worse because of the weather condition. We have a lot of areas in Romania where we missed the rain 300 days and even more. So in this condition, for us, it is very hard to respect the request of the GAEX 6 that speaks about the sensitive period. The land must be work when the nature allows you. So we need to work our land, not when a bureaucracy from Brussels say it, but when the land gives you this opportunity. So you are depending on the weather condition, whether you like it or not. And in this situation, we are also with the rotation of the cultures. Even if many of us, the majority of the farmers, are already respecting this, there are also areas where you cannot respect the rotation of the crops because we have very fragmented farms. So it is very, very hard to not to be in the situation where you have wet after wet or corn after corn.
So what will you do? Sorry, please do finish. And what will you do if you don't get what you want?
We already had several discussions with our minister. We already request the support from the ministers of the agriculture in the European state member, and we hope that on the next Agri-Fish Council, they will all be agreed that this proposal that we received these days, based on the France request, is not suitable for any of us. Basically, what the President of France and the Ministry of the Agriculture from France proposed, it is a partial derogation from the GAEC 8 that speaks about the unproductive area. But in Romania, we build our eco-schemes on this basic requirement. So if we have to take this proposal that we received, we will be put in the situation, or for example, for the catch crops, for a farm with 100 hectares will have to crop another 28 hectares of catch crops.
Right. So Liliana, you don't feel heard. You don't feel like your concerns have been heard by your authorities or by the Brussels at all.
From the Brussels, because they are saying also Mr. Wojciechowski and Mrs. Ursula, both of them replied to our request saying that the European environmental ambitions need to be respected, to go on with them, because it is a benefit that we will give to the soil. But in the fact, if we do these practices as Brussels say, instead of helping the soil, giving the soil the chance to regenerate, we will do more harm to the soil. The agriculture it is a science. It is not
Right.
like something you can do it from one office.
Let me go to Athens now. Apostolos, Greek farmers also have similar reasons to block the roads, but as well they are waiting for their compensations for losses after that storm last year. So they are particularly unhappy. What's the latest on that? What are their main demands?
So we have the local one, which is in the region of Thessaly, as you mentioned, is the compensation from the storm that happened in the almost the mid of last year. And we have the common demands, which they have to do with, for example, untaxed petrol to use or something that has to do with the subsidies. But in their substance, they have something in common, which is how to address the crisis of disposable income, which they have, of course, the farmers, but we also face in Europe, not only in Europe, and no matter our profession. But there is also one common thing with the farmers across Europe, and that's their opposition to the green transition and to the CAP. And that's where it stands, the main issue. That's a big picture for me. That they have to understand that everything doesn't go through the parliament, the national parliament, it goes through Brussels. And if they have to win something, they will have to maybe push the governments to renegotiate the new CAP, which took 10 years to form, actually, and to start implementing it beginning of 2024. But as it was discussed and was announced that it's going to be delayed, or it's going to be frozen for 1 year. And I think this is something that the Greek Prime Minister has already mentioned, that he is willing to discuss with his colleagues, the other Prime Ministers, about any adjustments that can happen, any amendments in the new CAP, in order to take into account the opinion, the view of the farmers.
And the thing is, all this is happening just a couple of months before the EU Parliament elections, so lots of focus in Brussels on that. What are the fears, Apostolos, that this issue can be politicized in the upcoming months?
We have already a trend in Europe, which is to vote for unconventional conservative parties. Some of them are extreme, some of them are not, but the trend is there. This has to do with inflation, the crisis of disposable income, and with immigration, mostly these two issues. Now, if you add the farmers into the equation, the farmers are they live in the countryside, okay? They have, they are conservative mostly, and they have low income, not all of them, but the majority of them. Meaning it's bread and butter for all the extreme right-wing parties across Europe in order to try and politicize this and have gains from that. And I don't believe that we are going to have any amendments. I don't believe that anybody believes that we're going to have any amendments on the CAP until the European elections. But to me, it seems that we are going to see a bigger trend on the percentages, higher percentages on the parties that are on the extreme right wing on several countries of the European Union. And therefore, we're going to have more MEPs in the next European Parliament from this side of the political spectrum.
Liliana, Apostolos, thank you both for being our guests. Unfortunately, I don't have any more time, but thank you for sharing your insights with us on Across the Balkans.